When Emma bought the old hillside house, the realtor promised character and unique architecture. What he didn't mention was that every time she turned off the lights and closed a door, the layout of the house seemed to change. Hallways stretched where closets used to be. Doors opened into rooms that hadn't been there the day before. Sometimes her bedroom simply wasn't. At first, she told herself it was stress, exhaustion, a bad memory. Timestamp 2025, 12:06, 09:59:09. Then one night, she watched a doorway shift 3 feet to the left in front of her eyes and understood a horrifying truth. This wasn't just a haunted house. The house itself was alive, and it didn't want her to leave the same way she came in. Emma Cole hadn't meant to move back to her hometown. Life had cornered her into it. A breakup, a remote job, and a suspiciously cheap listing on an old property just outside of town. The house sat on a sloping hill, half-hid, timestamp 2025 to 12:59:09. It was bigger than she needed, with narrow hallways, creaking floors, and a strange asymmetrical structure the listing called artistically unconventional. The previous owner had died of natural causes, and there was no family left to contest the sale. On her first walkthrough, the layout felt off. The kitchen was at the back, but a short hallway beside it led not to a dining room, but to a narrow closet that was deeper than it looked. Timestamp 2025, 12:06, 09:59:09. There was a door at the end of one corridor that didn't open at all, edges painted shut. The second floor had a too long hallway with only 2 doors, one at each end, like someone had stretched the space and forgotten to add the rest. Still, old houses had quirks. She brushed it off. She moved her boxes in, assembled her bed, set up her desk, took a hot shower, and went to sleep in her new bedroom. Top of the stairs, first door on the right. Timestamp 2025, 12:06, 09:59:09. She repeated it in her head like a note. Top of the stairs, first door on the right. Because from the very first night, the house felt like the kind of place where it would be easy to get lost. The first time she noticed something truly wrong, it was small, just a hairline crack in reality. She woke around 3 a.m., throat dry, and stepped out of her bedroom for a glass of water. She opened her door, turned left, and walked straight into a wall. She stopped. Disori. Timestamp 2025, 12:06, 09:59:09. She must have turned the wrong way. Still half asleep, she turned around, expecting to see her bedroom door right behind her. Instead, she found a different door. Same chipped white paint, but with an old brass handle instead of the newer metal knob she'd seen all day. Her bedroom door was simply gone. Cold prickled along her spine. She tried the brass handle. Timestamp 2025, 12:06, 09:59:09. The door opened onto a narrow linen closet packed floor to ceiling with shelves. Folded sheets stained yellow with time, old towels, cracked soap dishes, and the faint smell of dust and perfume. It felt like opening a memory that didn't belong to her. She backed away, heart pounding. She absolutely knew that her room had been at the top of the stairs, first door on the right, and yet the stairs weren't there. Timestamp 2025, 12:06, 09:59:09. Instead, the hallway stretched longer than it ever had, lined with several doors on each side, all identical. She squeezed her eyes shut, muttered that she was dreaming, and forced herself to breathe. When she opened her eyes again, the hallway was normal. Stairs ahead, her bedroom door exactly where it should be. The linen closet was gone. She got her water and crawled back into bed, shivering, telling herself it was stress, or sleepwalking, or anything else. The timestamp 2025 to 12:06, 09:59:09. The house creaked around her as it cooled, saying nothing. Over the next week, the changes multiplied. Sometimes the bathroom door was on the left side of the hallway instead of the right. Sometimes the kitchen doorway seemed to have shifted a few inches down the wall. Once, the living room window disappeared for an entire afternoon, replaced by blank plaster, only to reappear the next morning as if nothing had happened. Timestamp 2025, 12:06, 09:59:09. The discrepancies were small enough that she could almost explain them away. Almost. To reassure herself, she started taking photos on her phone. The hallway, the kitchen entrance, the living room. In the pictures, everything looked normal. doors where they should be, windows exactly in place. But when she lowered the phone and looked with her own eyes, a corner would be too far away, or a door frame would sit just slightly off from where it had been moments before. Timestamp 2025 12/26 09 and 59:09. The changes started to line up with her routine. If she rushed to the bathroom in the morning, the hallway would feel slightly longer, forcing her to walk farther. When she ran downstairs for coffee before a meeting, the staircase felt steeper, as if another step had been added somewhere in the night. Doors she used frequently would shift subtly. Doors she ignored would sometimes vanish entirely, replaced with blank wall. It felt less like random settling and more. Timestamp 2025 12/06 09 59:09. As if the house was observing her, learning which paths she favored, and then rearranging them. One evening, after a particularly stressful day, she headed toward the kitchen to heat leftovers. She rounded the corner and stopped. The kitchen was gone. In its place yawned a dark, windowless room she had never seen before. Bare wooden floorboards, warped and splintered. Unpainted walls showing exposed beams and torn wallpaper. At the far end, a single door with no timestamp, 2025 12/06 09 59:09. The air inside felt stale, as if it hadn't been disturbed in years. Emma's stomach dropped. She knew this was where her kitchen should be. She'd cooked there every day that week. She'd stood in this doorway, dropped a plate here, swept crumbs into a pan here. Now the house had decided something else belonged there. Panic clawed at her throat. She turned and hurried through the living room to the second entrance that should lead into the kitchen from the other side. Timestamp 2025 12/06 09 59:09. But where that doorway should have been, there was only uninterrupted wall. The house had deleted the kitchen. She closed her eyes, pressed her hands to the wall, and forced herself to count slowly. By the time she opened her eyes again, the kitchen was back, bright and familiar, as if it had never disappeared. The strange room was gone. After that, doubt settled into her like a second heartbeat. She began sleeping with a lamp on. She double-checked door position. Timestamp 2025 12/06 09 59:09. She measured the hallway with steps. 11. Some nights it took 13. Once it took 9. Old houses creak, she kept telling herself. But old houses aren't supposed to move their rooms. The night everything truly broke was the night the power went out. Rain hammered the roof. Wind rattled the windows. Around 1 a.m., the lights flickered and then died, plunging the house into blackness. Emma grabbed her phone and turned on the flashlight. Timestamp 2025 12/06 09 59:09. The beam showed walls, too many of them. The simple hallway leading from her bedroom to the stairs had split into 3 separate corridors, branching off at impossible angles. They hadn't been there when she'd gone to sleep. Her chest tightened. She picked the corridor that felt most familiar and walked, phone trembling in her hand. The floor sloped downward, just slightly, in a way it never had before. Timestamp 2025 12/06 09 59:09. After a few yards, she realized there were no stairs, no landing, no end, just more hallway stretching into darkness. She turned to go back to her room. The way behind her was gone. In its place, the corridor continued, featureless and narrow. "Stop," she whispered into the dark, her voice shaking. "Just stop." She began opening doors whenever one appeared. Some led to empty rooms that smelled like dust and old wood. Timestamp 06 09 59:09. Some opened onto strange, mismatched fragments. A bathroom sink crammed into a closet. A window looking out onto a brick wall pressed inches from the glass. A staircase climbing straight into a solid ceiling with no opening. Every time she tried to retrace her steps, the paths behind her had changed. This was no longer a house with shifting quirks. It was a maze that rebuilt itself while she was inside. Her phone battery drained quickly. 21%, 18%, 12%. Timestamp 2025 12/06 09 59:09. With every minute, new sounds emerged. A dull dragging somewhere distant, a soft, irregular knocking that never came from the same direction twice, the faint echo of a door closing somewhere she could not reach. Once, she opened a door and found what looked exactly like her living room. Same couch, same coffee table, same rug. Relief washed over her. until she noticed the frames on the wall. Timestamp 2025, 12/06, A9, 5909. The photos showed people she didn't recognize, standing in rooms that mirrored hers but were not quite the same. The pattern on the couch cushions was wrong. The color of the rug was off by a shade. The view through the window showed a street she had never seen in her life. It felt like she was looking into someone else's version of the house, someone else's life stamped onto the same bones. She backed out and slammed the door. Her battery dipped to 5%. Her Brett, timestamp 2025, 12/06, 09:59/09. "Please," she whispered, her throat tight. "Let me out." At some point, fear and exhaustion finally dragged her under. She must have collapsed, because the next thing she remembered was waking on the floor of what looked like the entry hallway. The front door stood right there. Weak daylight filtered through the frosted glass. A digital clock on a side table blinked 7:12 a.m. The power was back. For a long time, she didn't move. Timestamp 2025, 12:06, 09:59:09. Then she lurched to her feet, grabbed her keys, and flung the door open. Outside, everything was ordinary. Gray sky, damp grass, the distant sound of a car passing on the road. No twisting corridors, no impossible angles, just the quiet of early morning. She stepped onto the porch and sat down hard, shaking, clutching the keys until her fingers hurt. She didn't set foot back inside for hours. When she finally re-entered, the house looked normal again. No extra timestamp 2025, 12:06, 09:59:09. The kitchen was where it should be. Her bedroom sat at the top of the stairs, first door on the right. The sense of wrongness lingered, but the evidence had been wiped clean. Instead of working that day, she drove into town and went to the records office. The elderly clerk recognized the address before she finished saying it. His expression shifted, just a little. He pulled old files, deeds, transfers, incident reports, yellowed news clippings. Timestamp 2125, 12:06, 09:59:09. Over 70 years, the house had changed hands more than any other on that road. Owners rarely stayed long. Some moved out abruptly with no notice. Others vanished, leaving cars in the driveway and belongings inside. Several notes mentioned getting lost inside. One handwritten letter from a former owner said, "Rooms move at night, cannot keep track, house will not hold still." Timestamp 2025, 12:06, 09:59:09. Another report from a police officer investigating a disappearance noted, "Interior does not match submitted floor plans." The original blueprints showed a small, sensible two-story layout. Just rooms, just walls, just stairs. Nothing like what Emma had experienced. On the back of one of the blueprints, in faded pencil, someone had written, "Tried to fix it. Walls moved again next day. House won't accept changes." Emma left the office with a thick knot in her throat. Timestamp 2025, 12:06, 09:59:09. The house had been wrong for a long time, and anyone who tried to live inside it ended up running away or never walking out at all. That night, Emma refused to sleep in the house. She sat in her car in the driveway, wrapped in a blanket, watching the dark windows through the windshield. The engine was off. Condensation slowly formed on the glass from her breath. Around 2 a.m., she saw a light flicker on in an upstairs room she knew she hadn't left illuminated. Timestamp 2025, 12:06, 09:59:09. Shadows moved past the windows, slow and deliberate, like people walking through rooms. One shadow crossed in front of a window that shouldn't exist, too far left from where her bedroom window should be. The house was rearranging itself even with no one inside. By morning, she knew what she had to do. She would leave. No renovations, no resale, just leave. She went inside one last time, refusing to step farther than the front hallway. Timestamp 2025, 12:06, 09:59:09. She grabbed what she could reach easily, some clothes, her laptop bag, a couple of boxes, and carried them to the car. Each time she crossed the threshold, the house loomed behind her, silent and watchful. On her final trip, she paused in the open doorway, keys in hand. The familiar layout of the entryway stretched behind her for a few steps. Stairs on the left, hallway toward the living room, the small table with the dish for keys on the right. She told herself, no, timestamp, 2025, 12:06, 09, 59, 09. The hallway behind her was gone. In its place, an unfamiliar corridor yawned, long and dim, lined with closed doors on either side. No stairs, no coat rack, no living room. It was as if the house had pulled its insides back, reshuffling its organs the second it sensed she was leaving. The doorframe where she stood suddenly felt narrow, the wood pressing a little too close against her shoulders. The air behind her seemed to shift, like the slow inhale of something. Timestamp, 2025, 12:06, 09, 59, 09. For a moment, she stood frozen, one foot inside, one out, as the house breathed around her. She could feel it, the faint pull of air behind her, the invitation to take just one step back and let the door close. Just one step. Then it could decide where to put her. Emma stepped forward instead. She slammed the front door and walked straight to her car. She didn't sell the house. She didn't contact another realtor. Timestamp, 12:06, 09, 59, 09. She left the keys in the mailbox and drove away without looking in the rearview mirror. The hillside house still stands. Its paint peels and its yard grows wild, but the structure never sags. Neighbors say they sometimes see lights moving inside at night, flickering behind curtains when no one should be there. The mailman quietly admits that, on some mornings, the front door appears on the left side of the porch, and on others, it's on the right. Timestamp, 2025, 12:06, 09, 59, 09. They all agree on one thing. Something about that place is wrong. If you ever walk into an old house and feel like the room behind you isn't quite where you left it, if a doorway seems shifted a little to one side, if the hallway feels too long, pay attention. Some houses don't want to be mapped. Some aren't built for you to live in them. They're built to keep you. Timestamp, 2025, 12:06, 09, 59, 09. And some houses are only rearranging their rooms, over and over, testing angles and paths, waiting patiently for the day they finally run out of exits, and there's nowhere left for you to find your way back out. Timestamp, 2025, 12:06, 09, 59, 09.